In this episode, I sit down with Mike to discuss some of the skills and traits that make him the trader that he is today, from his time in the military to now trading full-time. Mike's Darwin SLCF has achieved €615,000 in seed capital allocation from Darwinex Zero, and his Darwin also placed #1 out of over 5,000 traders participating in the January edition of DarwinIA Silver. So stay tuned as we dive into Mike's story. Mike, welcome to the Zero Edge. How are we?
Feeling amazing, man. Just got back from a trip. So it's good to be at home, have some peace, be behind my desk.
It's always good, man. When you've been away from your setup, you always can't wait to get back, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm cool trading mobile. Like I've been doing that actually most of the time. I'm one of the few traders that sometimes I probably trade more on my phone. Yeah. Which is like I'm definitely gonna get stuff for that at some point in the comments here. But I've just traveled a ton, so I just got you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt. So it is what it is. Yeah. But how are you, bro? How are you feeling?
I'm good, mate. I mean, the weather over here has actually picked up. So the past couple of weeks has just been rain. And in the UK, when the weather starts to get a bit better, everybody goes in a fantastic mood. So life right now is amazing. But let's talk a little bit about you. Let's dive straight into Mike as a trader, and kind of like your life beforehand. I want to know everything that was kind of in the lead up to you getting to the position where you are today. So let's rewind the clock back before you become Mike the trader. And who were you as a person? What was your history, career-wise, education? Like what led you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I started trading my senior year or my senior year of college, university, right? But I mean, I'm someone who's just curious. I've always been super curious. I like to dive into the unknown. Like literally, I like jumping out of planes. Like I did that actually before this stuff. But career-wise, I mean, at the time, man, I was just working a ton. Like I went to school because I got a pretty good scholarship. Otherwise, I had no money. And I didn't want to put that on my parents. I don't know. I wasn't feeling like that was the thing for me to do. And so luckily I got a scholarship to a school I didn't even apply to, but it was like a sister school or something like that. So somehow, I don't know, they got same databases. They sent me money over like an offer and I'm like, let's go. All right, cool. I guess I'll have a future. And so I go and yeah, man, I just love learning. So I was there and I just felt stagnant for the whole time. Like, how you go through, you pass like through each year, but I just felt like I had no skills. The only skills I really had were in the realm of partying. I got a lot better at that, but not really anything else.
You pick up knowledge and not skills necessarily, right?
100%. Exactly. You know things, but you really can't do anything different. And I was getting bored, man. And so I felt like I needed to make a shift. I felt like I needed to do something because I was also getting behind on school payments and I was working 50, 60 hours a week while going to school full time. So I kind of felt like I was drowning, but I also felt like non-inspired at all. And so I did like the opposite of what my personality and beliefs were. And I joined the military. So I was just like, let me be responsible. Let's turn things around. And so I joined the Air Force here in the US. And yeah, it was terrible. It was awful.
How long were you in the Air Force for?
I mean, I got lucky, man. I got really lucky. It's a 6-year contract, but I only did like 2.5. I just worked with really cool people. And so this, trading and a couple of things were going really well. And, one thing that I do believe in is like the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So even though it wasn't like what I wanted to do in my life, I just felt like I had to do it at the highest level, or at least just like have a good attitude. And so, yeah, that ended up working out because they were like, hey, like, we're grateful for you here. And if you don't want to be here, then, we'll see what we can do for you. And so, yeah, I ended up getting out pretty early. But honestly, those times, like going through like military training, like the boot camp, basic military training, seeing the psychological effect on people, like I feel like that helped me out a lot as a trader too, because you get to learn a lot about human behavior, like fear, anxiousness, and things like that. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, that's what I was doing before I started trading. I was just kind of constantly looking for something different, and at any really extreme. So when I got back from like basic training and stuff like that, which was like, I don't know, like 9 months of my life, after that happened, then I was like, okay, cool, let me get back into school or whatever. But I was already starting to look into like entrepreneurship, like, okay, how do I make money outside of just going to work and things like that, how to make a business. And that's what kind of led me to trading. So that's what it was though. Yeah, man, just been curious, and I skateboarded my whole life. So I was really cool with failure. I was ready to just eat it. So whatever happens, happens. That's kind of my mindset.
No, that's awesome, man. And I think, well, I'm sure we can touch on your time in the Air Force and how that kind of crafted your discipline and how you are. I mean, you are the disciplined trader, right? That's your
Yeah.
Darwinex username. So I guess, a lot of this stems back from your kind of upbringing and that experience going through, boot camp and all this sort of training. So we'll touch on that a little bit. But I get you're curious, but what initially sparked that interest in trading? So like, how did you initially hear about Forex or stocks or, the market in general? What was your first experience like with that?
I've actually, over the years, I've started to see that there's been seeds further and further. It's been so cool. Like last year, so you know how NVIDIA's just been going crazy. It's just nonstop. And so it like triggered a memory of being in high school, like maybe my sophomore year or something. And one of my buddies, his dad, who was super cool, he would tell us like what he was investing in. And he's like, this one right here, he's like, NVIDIA, like this thing is gonna go crazy. Like this is gonna retire up. This is gonna retire us. And he was right. This was like 2011.
Yeah.
So he would tell us, he's like, yo, I know you guys are just starting to work. Like just start buying a little bit. And obviously I didn't do that because I wanted, shoes and skateboard and the other things that I shouldn't be buying. And so, but I didn't remember any of that until last year. And I was like, oh, there was a seed there for sure. Because like I grew up, my parents worked super hard, but they're from El Salvador, super poor country, and they were in the middle of like a civil war when they came out to the U.S. And so they came here to just work, and they ended up meeting here in the U.S. And I was a product of my mom looking to leave the state, and my dad was like, nah, I'm gonna get you pregnant instead. And so I was that. And so they just worked super hard. And one of the things that I'm grateful, man, because they honestly I learned a lot from them, but they never were like, hey, go and be this person. It was just like they kind of were really pushing towards us having a bright future, but they weren't really telling us what that needed to look like. Like my dad would take us to work on semi trucks because he drove semi trucks at the time, and he'd take me to work on them, and we would be there for like my whole Saturday was just 8 hours of like doing mechanic type of work, and it was like the worst thing ever. And this was like every Saturday for like years. And so when I was going to school, he's like, do you know why I brought you here all the time? And I was like, I don't know, because you don't like me as a person or something. He's like, no. He's like, because I wanted you to know how terrible this is. Because I don't want you to live this. I don't want you to do any of this. So I wanted you to realize like this sucks and go do something better. And so I was like, all right, cool. You could have said that years ago, but
save all the slave labor.
yeah, he had his own method to his madness for sure. He taught me a lot about emotional intelligence as well in his own unorthodox process. But yeah, they kind of
which usually sticks with you more, right? When it's a little bit more unorthodox.
For sure. He was like, he is still, but a troll. Like he would just mess with us crazy. And he's like, oh, why are you angry? And he's instigating and doing all this. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're making me mad. Like you're doing all these things. He's like, I'm not making you mad. He's like, you choose to be mad. And like I didn't get that for a long time.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, he's like, you're giving me power, but you're allowing this to happen. So, he'd go into this whole Yoda thing, um, which is super valid and has helped me a lot in this process too. But yeah, that curiousness, I think everyone has it. I think everyone has the curiosity and the desire to discover, but it's like it gets buried based off of how you're nurtured. Your school does not help you whatsoever in staying curious and things like that. So I think they kind of just allowed that to thrive a bit more. And so I think eventually it just hit the right. Like I found what I was looking for. Because it's trading for me once I saw, because the moment that I discovered it was one of my friends that I've known for a super long time, who was already doing really well as a 21-year-old. Like he was already making good money in his profession as an accountant. He was doing this. And so I saw like the screenshot, MT4, $40 in profit type of screenshot in like 2015 or 16. And I was like, yo, what's what we doing? Like what's going on? And that was it. Like that was the hook. The hook was the screenshot. Typical, off the phone, making money. He wasn't like hyping or like selling a lifestyle or anything. It was just like cool to him because I had never seen that before. I mean, you got to think back. No one was doing this at that age, like at all. 2015, 16, you didn't see like people doing this. So
Well,
yeah,
that
I
was
was like,
before really the rise of like the Instagram traders and
yeah,
before signals really got. I mean, I'm sure it was out there to a degree, but I mean, when I
yeah,
think
yeah,
back
yeah.
to 2015, 2016, I don't really think there was that much
Mhm.
going on realistically.
No, man, it was nothing. Like you couldn't really even find information on YouTube. Like it was so rare. It was weird. So it was cool. Like that's why it felt more, I felt like I was a part of like a secret society when I started.
The blue screen secret society, that blue MetaTrader 4.
Yeah, no, I really was like, I found it. Like I found the secret. Like this is it. This is like how I get unplugged from the matrix.
Yeah.
And that was like, that's all I needed to see. And I'm grateful too, because he honestly like set the right expectations. He was transparent. He had been scammed like 5 or 6K or something 6 months before that. He's like, yeah, I make money sometimes, I lose money sometimes. So I had the right people, honestly, because I don't know, had in my introduction to all of this been a little different, who knows where this goes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great way to be introduced via word of mouth from somebody that you trust, who isn't saying you need to do this, you need to make a load of money. It's kind of, this is what I'm doing,
Yeah,
this is how I do it. If you want to do it as well, go the right path, learn the right tricks. And
for
I
sure.
kind of want to divert a little bit away from that and go back to something that you said that I think is really, really interesting, about the way your dad kind of crafted you with this emotional intelligence. Because when you were saying it, I was literally thinking, this is the market, right? When your
Yeah.
dad used to prod and provoke you and say things, and then he'd be like,
Oh
well,
yeah.
why are you getting angry? I'm not
Mhm.
doing anything. There's kind of a weird similarity there
Yeah.
where the market will beat you and beat you and beat you until you're down and out, and then you'll be super angry at the market, but the market hasn't done anything, right? All it's done is triggered
Nope.
that emotional response to you. So how do you
Mhm.
think that's kind of like translated into your trading over the years? Because that must have been years ago, completely unrelated, but I do really think that's a skill that you've probably brought across, right?
Yeah, definitely not right away. I just didn't have the awareness to realize how important emotional intelligence was and discipline. And like in the beginning, it wasn't like, oh, let me just cut all of these experiences of my life and let me just put them into this. Like, no, no, hell no. I was trash, I was so bad. I was chasing the money. Because I had an amazing first week. Like I like almost tripled my account the first week I started. And so I had a couple like 200 and change in there. Never did demo, just went straight to live account. And then my first week was good. Had like 750 after I was done for the week. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Sick. Oh, and then I did the math and I'm like, if I continue this pace, like dude, I'm gonna have 6 figures in no time, and I'm gonna have 1 million in no time. So I'm just like doing this, like, because it's normal,
Yeah.
like 100%.
Well, who's to say that that's wrong, right? You've just done that for the past 2 weeks. Who's to say that that's not going to continue for the next 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? Because you don't know any better, right?
I know, I didn't know anything, and yeah, it was just like at the end of the weekend, I remember I was just so hyped, so hyped. I go and I buy a desk, like my first like little like L desk, and on from Amazon, like the cheapest thing I could possibly find. And I start putting like all the chart patterns everywhere on the walls. I got into my zone. I'm like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And it was so funny because the market opened Sunday, and I get off of work I worked at a bar, and I just start trading. And then I didn't sleep that night because I also worked at Red Bull, so I had like unlimited Red Bull. And now by the time it was like Monday, New Year's session, that account was gone. I just obliterated it. But I think what really, like, I was almost unbothered. Like, it was frustrating, but it was like, okay, on to the next one. And that's where I think my skateboarding, like 15 years at that time, I had been skating for like 15 years or so. And so I was like, cool, do it again. And I didn't realize, because that's a good and bad trade. Because then I just did the same thing for like 7 months. I'd fund it like $200 and I'd just lose it, and I'd lose it, and I'd lose it, and I'd lose it. And I'd go up into profits, but I wouldn't withdraw because ego or pride. And so then I'd go in and bring it back down and end up blowing it. So I just did that over and over and over again. Because I wasn't in a culture community where there wasn't like a long-term mindset. It was like account flipping. Like, okay, we'll start with a little bit and we'll take it to 1,000. Like, okay, all we need is 3 or 4 trades in a row and we're good. So, but that was the journey, man. That's how it started. So to answer your question, which I totally didn't answer, the emotional intelligence side, it didn't transfer over right away. But I think once I went back and kind of put the pieces together, it definitely was so useful because I realized I had already played this game.
And I guess the kind of, the psychological aspect of trading really, and I could be wrong for some people, but really only comes in down the line, right? For the majority of people who are new to the industry, their focus goes to technicals and getting the knowledge. And I mean, to a degree, I think that's the right thing to do. Whenever you learn a new subject, you always look at the theory and understand the why and what you need to do, which would be, I need to analyze XYZ data, whether it's a chart, whether it's, some interest rates or macro data, and build a thesis around that. But psychology and emotional intelligence kind of get put to the back of the mind for most. And so I guess like you probably always had that skill there, but it was kept, it was under the carpet because you was too focused on other things at the time, like technical analysis or like all the profits that you're going to make when you keep flipping these accounts, So obviously you say that you went on that same process of just funding the account and blowing it, funding the account and blowing it. How long did that sort of last for before you kind of thought this, there must be something that I'm missing and I need to go out and find that?
That kind of like, because I wasn't really evaluating anything, I was just kind of going through it. It was just mindlessly putting in the reps, which is good. Like, you do learn a lot just putting in reps, but you get the most when you're super intentional about what is it that I'm doing? Why is this not working? How do I make changes to certain parts of my system? Like, I didn't know what having a trading system or a plan even looked like. It was just like, this is technical analysis, and then like, here are all the different ways you can enter or exit the market. Which now I literally have like one entry model. Like, I have 2, but the other one rarely happens. So it's just funny how that evolves. But it was a good 7-8 months, man. I was down I think I was down like at least $5,000-$6,000 by the time I was like, oh, I definitely should make some changes or like do this a little differently. Because the technicals were making sense. Like, I was learning a lot. Like, I was getting a lot better at seeing the market. I went through like every indicator I possibly could have seen at the time. Not that indicators are bad. It's just not my trading style. I think you can win it anyway. Like, anyone that's been trading long enough knows that you can do anything and be profitable, but you can't do everything and be profitable. But you got to find what works for you best. So I went through all the indicators and it just, I don't know, wasn't clicking. It wasn't like I couldn't make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like I didn't want to just do something because it's supposed to work. I wanted to figure out why does this work. Like I couldn't get the answers.
The way I think about indicators, and I'm sorry to interrupt, is kind
No,
of,
go ahead.
I don't, again, like you, I don't have that notion where it's like, it doesn't work or I can't make use of this. There's a load of indicators I do incorporate for certain elements, but the way I look at an indicator is I go, this is a certain trader's mind put onto an indicator, right? Because whatever it is, I mean, you've got things like moving averages, which is obviously a smoothened out version of price, which is data driven. But when you look at something like, you know, the stochastic or the RSI, that's a concept that a trader has come up with and said, you know, there is higher volatility to the downside here, and therefore the RSI is going to print lower. It's just a trader's concept conceptualized on the chart. And so no indicator should ever be considered as the holy grail. They should only be considered, you know, the same way that you would look at a pin bar and go, you know, this looks specifically bearish because it's a pin bar to the downside. You would never go, that's my edge, is that I trade every single pin bar. Otherwise, you would get smoked on a daily basis, right?
I mean, for sure. Like, unless you have an overwhelming amount of evidence under certain circumstances that something like that would work, then for sure. But other than that, like, I agree 100%. Like, they're tools.
Tools to add confluence to an already outlined thesis, right? So you build your perspective on the market, whether it be your higher time frame narrative from a price action perspective, or even from like something, because I always try and, when I'm looking at building a trade thesis, I try and make it my own, which I'm sure we can discuss, because you know, you clearly do the same sort of thing, where I try and look at positions that only I will be looking at. Now, obviously, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of other traders going long euro dollar when I do, but for the specific reasons that I do, I want it to be completely my own, whether it's 10 indicators I've put in play that I've put together and not got off a forum or a website, or 10 price action patterns and stuff. So I guess my question to you on that is what differentiates, you know, the way you look at the market, or how do you try and keep your system different to everybody else in this day and age?
So I feel like if I'm not looking at anybody else's system, then it's my system, and like it's impossible for it not to be mine. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I looked at someone else's TA. You know, it's got to be years. You know, and I think at the end of the day, like you may have a very, very similar model as someone else, and you can have an identical model as someone else, as long as you are 100% fully committed to it and it leverages your strengths. So that's what has worked for me. Like I look at the market through kind of a lens in terms of narrative. Like I look at this like, okay, this market is telling me a story. It wants me to believe a certain story on how the price is supposed to move. And so, okay, can I read through that? And so now there's a very like specific sequence in terms of candlesticks and things like that I can look for. But yeah, so I do really believe that it comes down to, is this something that you have an overwhelming confidence with, in which you can execute over time? And obviously it's a little complex, because then it's like a lot of the question with this trading system is, okay, what will make this break? Like you have to know how to stress test your system. So is that risk? I feel like a lot of times it's going to be risk. If you can't go on a losing streak and keep it, then okay, you're risking too much. Or sometimes it has nothing to do with how much you're putting in risk, but it has everything to do with like your own, you know, self-identity, where it's like, I'm not making money yet, and I should be by now. Like your own expectations, your own downfall, because I'm supposed to be here by this time, but I'm still over here. And so it's like we're creating our own, you know, like we're putting like almost an expiration date on when we're supposed to be making it or be profitable or whatever. And I think that honestly probably crushes more traders than anything, is just these fabricated expectations on when we're supposed to make it. It's like,
which is
when
probably exacerbated now, right, with the you know, the rise in social media and the, I don't want to say gurus, but just everybody trades these days. That's what it seems like, and that can cause, like you say, that effect where you feel there's an additional pressure on top of yourself, because not only are you now counting on yourself to be successful, but you're also now in a field where everybody seems to be successful, and that's a very tough
it's
field to
tricky.
compete in.
Yeah, it's tricky because on social media, what do you want to post when you feel good? When do you feel good? Usually when you're winning, right? Now, unless you've have a lot of experience in the game and you've gotten to that point where you're pretty detached, and then it's like, I mean, for me, like, I like talking about my losers because there's just a lot more to get out of it for me, and also for, I think, at this point in time, like, I don't care to be, and other people are like this too. Like, I just don't care to be seen as the one that's always winning. I don't care about that, but I can give you so much more value by, okay, here's why this trade lost, or here's this losing streak, and then here's the, you know, what happens afterwards. Why was I able to continue to be profitable, or, you know, hit whatever metrics, even if I lost all this much? It's like, what was it that I did right where other people would have gone wrong, or just creating the real transparency of like how this goes, because there's just a lot more value in that. Is that going to have the most, I don't know, like retweets or views? Maybe not, but when you're new, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see losses. Like, it doesn't even if they're there, even if the majority of the space was actually telling you like, yo, this is hard and you're probably going to lose a lot more than you win, and it might take longer than you thought, you're still not going to listen anyways, for the most part, you know, because you don't want to. Like, I had good people, bro. I had really good people in my corner when I started. They emphasize risk management. They emphasize compounding and everything like that. I didn't care. I wanted to be free. You know, I wanted to not have jobs anymore. I had dropped out of school. I was ready. I was like, no, I'm gonna flip accounts because that's what's gonna make me free. And, you know, I'm different because I'm smart or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting. Like, could our space be way better? For sure. Oh my God, so much better. But to an extent, it's kind of like that concept, and I actually want to get your opinion on this. It's like, if you reset the whole world right now, studies show it's going to basically go back to how it was. So it's like, we can do a lot better, but even then, it's like, you kind of have to learn how to suffer anyways in this process. Don't you think? Like, you kind of have to learn how to survive.
I think, and I love that question, because it's a real kind of, everybody can have their own interpretation and their own kind of answer to it. But I mean, for me specifically, I'll keep it short and sweet because I don't really want to talk about me too much. But I had a period of drawdown that lasted a year. And I was also trading at the time on funded accounts that I've still got now, that was sat in drawdown for a year. Now, it would have been super easy for me to throw in the towel and 5% risk them and go, well, it would have probably been less time if I'd have blown them and bought new accounts, right? But I didn't. I stuck at it. And that 12 months, I mean, I've spoke about this to so many people, and people who ask me, you know, I've had so many people say, I've been in drawdown for 2 months, or I haven't been paid in a month. And I'm like, try 12. Try a full year of every day working hard and doing the same thing without getting paid. It's extremely difficult. But what it does, it builds a character or a personality that is prepared for anything. And I think the people who go through, or the traders per se, that go through experiences like that, become immune to the noise and become immune to all the stuff out there that does need a reset. Like, you talk about the space needing a reset. I couldn't agree more. So I worked really hard at trying to network with people and find great connections on Twitter, which I did. I made some great friends on Twitter. I connected with the right people, Darwinex for one, and it was fantastic. But I switched it off in November and I didn't log on for 4 months because I was getting distracted from the noise, and I was thinking, I'm too good to let myself get distracted by somebody else's chart or somebody else's success. And so I switched it off. And for me, that was my reset, where I said the space has been reset because I've not been a part of it. So that's kind of my interpretation on it. But I do think, from the way you were saying it, there needs to be, and this is an element that Darwinex provides, or Darwinex Zero provides, is that level of accountability to traders like yourself, where if you go to Twitter, for example, or you go onto Instagram and you say, this is what you need to be successful, or even if it was, I'm looking to coach people, people can never come at you and say, you shouldn't be coaching people. That's a rubbish piece of advice. I'm not listening to you, because you can go, well, here's my record. That's how I trade, regardless of whether it's 2 months, 6 months, 5 years. When you've documented your kind of your career or your trades, it's very difficult to argue with. And I think that we're gonna see a shift very, very soon where, and I don't mean to talk bad on prop firms or traders who have payouts, because more power to everybody who earns money from trading. I really encourage that for everybody, but I think very soon payout certificates will be replaced with track records. And I think that's the reset that needs to happen. And I don't know if you completely agree with that, but I think
I agree. I think I've seen a lot of the people that are very loud when they're getting paid also silently disappear from having a track record as well. That's up to everyone else to interpret, not me. But one, like, they're different games too. So like, I can't say one is better or worse. But I'm in a game, I only play infinite games. That's how I look at the world. I'm only gonna do things really, like, I know when I'm doing something that I'm gonna do forever, and when something else is just an experiment. The prop firm space is cool. I'm grateful, man. Like, the wild, wild west that space is awesome. Thank you for the money you have provided in my life. But can I count on that for the rest of my life? Definitely not. There's just no way. I can't. It's not. I mean, it's. I know business gratefully. Like, I understand business. I've been in business for 10 years, give it like 9 years, and I know what it looks like when it's run by just kids, basically. I mean, I'm 29, bro. I'm not old either, but the flaws of what business looks like are very transparent if you want to open your eyes and see it in the space. You can't, like, if you truly want to just look at it, not from like, okay, what's in it for me, but like, okay, what are the chances that this sticks around? It's very evident. But they're different games, and I think having a track record, and I would love to see a world where like it's not a payout based, but it is track record based. Because I think that just overall instills way better behaviors, bro, to so many people. Because that's what I'm doing with my community. Like, everyone, I'm putting them on now, because it's like, this is going to instill for you to focus on staying in the game, for you to be able to look yourself in the mirror and just accept it, and then make the changes that you need to make. Because that's also why I do like the prop firm spaces, because it's like, hey, here is a certain risk percentage, and don't break these rules. So it did kind of force you to be, okay, I only have this much to work with. Okay, cool. Now I got to be a little bit more forward thinking, 0.5% risk or 0.25% risk or whatever, if that's the way you want to do it. And then you're thinking a bit and kind of in terms of longevity, because you want to keep the accounts. I think that when they went away with the time limits, like, you don't have to do it in 30 days. When that disappeared, I think that was a really good decision for the traders. I think that's more of how it is. But the downside was that was not a good for for their business. But that's why I love Darwinex so much, man. Like, I think that it's just doing a lot of good service for traders and for the space as a whole, because it's allows you to instill just like good behaviors, good habits, and there's positive reinforcement for those things.
100%. And touching on the prop space, like you was talking about, a question that I get asked a lot in the Darwinex Discord. If you're not in the Discord, make sure you join. A question I get asked a lot. What did you say, sorry, bro?
I actually just joined the Discord.
Good man, good man.
Be in there.
But a question that I get a lot is, why do you only pay 15% when I can go to a prop and get 80 or 90%? And a lot of the time, obviously I have to stay professional when I'm responding. And we talk about it and we say, well, we are represented like a hedge fund, so we have to operate within the confines of what a hedge fund would do. 15-20% payouts are pretty much standardized across the board when you're looking at prop like physical brick and mortar prop firms, trading desks, hedge funds. Prop firms, whilst they pay 80%, like you said, there's a lot of business flaws to that, and I don't want this to seem like I'm bashing the prop firm model, because like you, I'm very grateful. And I think for good traders or people who at least can game the system and make payouts, it's extremely beneficial. But one thing that I urge people to ask themselves, and I mean, it's a bit of a weird analogy, but imagine walking into a casino and saying to the person at the desk in the casino, here's £500, give me 100,000 so I can go and bet it on roulette. What do you think the casino is going to say to you? They're going to boot you out that door quicker than anything, right? Then absolutely no way would a casino give you 100 grand when you've put 500 margin on, because the risk would just be too insane, right? They're either going to end up paying you out, or they end up taking the financial loss if you blow that 100K or the 10K or whatever it may be. And when you think of it like that, it really highlights that there is no house edge in running a prop firm if traders are successful and making payouts on a huge scale. And that's something that, if anybody's watching this who kind of thinks, but why would I work for 15%? That's the exact reason why, because the 80%, the 90% payouts, they're likely, like you said, it's likely never to, or not going to be there forever, because there's so many flaws that might, and I hope no traders get hurt in the process, as we've seen thus far, but it might be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, who knows? But eventually there might only be a couple of prop firms left, because that model has so many flaws to it. And that's kind of the long answer that I wish I could say to people. We'll go and get paid out 80% then, because more power to you. But if you don't have to choose
between both, just each one, you got to look at them like income streams. This is an income stream. This is another income stream. These are just different lanes for different purposes. But like, to your question, I mean, to your statement, man, one, you're operating capital that's real. One, you're not. So it's like, you got to think about it, not just about yourself. Like there's more pieces to the game. There's investors. It's their money. If they're not there, okay, then there's no money for you.
Of course.
There's no money for you to trade if they're not there. So yeah, it's their money at risk, not yours. So the problem, not even a problem, is just like a lot of traders come into the space now with just that. Like all is prop firms, because it's way easier to market, and it is good leverage. Like of course, it makes so much sense for the trader. Like, yeah, dude, do this.
Failed.
That's me. Went break even. I don't know if you heard the stop filled. I just hit break even.
I wondered what that noise was. What are you trading right now?
I was in NAS, but I just got stopped out at break even. I was in a buy. It's still my run, but it's all right.
It's been wild the past few days, dude.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been good. I got lucky on CPI. So lucky. I got like, it waked up to my TP and then it just died. So I was like, like I would have given up like 4R back, but yeah, thankfully.
Do you just trade the one asset, or do you trade a multitude?
Oh man, I'm the type of dude that if it moves, I'll trade that.
So do you trade all asset classes as well? So FX, commodities, indices?
FX, commodities, indices, crypto. Man, I'm about to take a natural gas play for a long time, like possibly the longest trade I ever take. We're like 4-year lows for natural gas, and I've never really trade that. But so here's some alpha for anyone that's interested in looking at that trade. But yeah, so but the time frames in terms of like how long do I hold a trade, definitely varies depending on the asset class for sure. Indices are so choppy that I'm a small time frame trader. I'm intraday for the most part on indices. If you swing trade indices with small stop losses, like you're a gangster. Anyone that can do like 50 point, if you can do an under 50 point stop on indices and hold that for weeks, you are a goat. Because that's some insane precision, because that just requires a lot. But yeah, that's why like my Darwinex is really interesting, because I'm like all over the place. And I think that kind of confuses the risk engine as well a bit. But
you trade like multiple strategies per se. I mean, I know you've only got 1 or 2 entry models, but you can obviously utilize those on different time frames or holding periods and stuff. So I guess you trade multiple sort of strategies.
Yeah, for exits, exits for sure. It's a lot more based on where I'm at in structure. So like, for example, October, I got into metals buys. And so I was able to pin the lows on those metals, and I held that for quite some time. But that's because I knew I was all right. I'm on the daily time frame. Like we're at these deep pullbacks, and then I got on a smaller time frame, my exact entry model. So like everything was aligned. That's for me like swing trade. Like we get to hold this bad boy, and the risk reward can look a lot better. And then you'll see that sometimes too. Like if you look at my Darwinex account, for anyone that's watching or listening, you'll suddenly see like, oh, this month he hit 12%, like I don't know what. And usually it's because I also have a swing trade that happens to work in that month, and that helps, boost everything.
It might not be that you've gone and smashed 100 more trades that month and made a load more profit. It might be that one of your swing positions, yes, it's 12% for the month, but if you've been holding it for 1 or 2 months, that might be 6% a month on average, and therefore it's kind of like delayed performance, if you will.
That's exactly what happened for January. Like the month that I won, I probably only won because one of my swing trades finally hit to exit. Like I was in like USD CAD for like 3 weeks. And so that finally cleared in January, at some point in January. And yeah, that put me over the whatever. Like, because I'm not going to win. Like I'm not trying to win. I'm just trading. And then it worked out.
Yeah. So before we talk about that, actually, because that's a point that I really want to cover. What was your first experience with Darwinex? Like, how did you hear about Darwinex Zero, and what attracted to us initially?
Yeah. So I heard about Darwinex first in February 2020. So I was in Spain. I was in Barcelona. I was just traveling. Like I got so lucky. I got to travel like all of Europe, like I hit like 14 countries right before COVID. Like the month before, like I was everywhere up until COVID. In early March, I left the UK, landed in New York, and like days later, they just closed everything. So I always think
Good
like,
job you didn't get stuck over it, really.
Yeah, I'm like, wonder what life would have been like if I had gotten stuck. But yeah, so I discovered that in Barcelona, and it was one of my students. I happened to meet up with him, and he was walking me through some stuff. And then he's like, "Yo, have you seen these guys that they're like managing millions with blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Oh, like a prop firm?" Because at that point was when FTMO, like I had heard of FTMO a couple months back. And I was like, "Bro, there's no why would they give you this money to trade, bro? Like, what? That makes no sense. Like, it didn't make any sense." But then I heard of Darwinex, and I was like, yeah, these guys have a track record, and then they can get, money or whatever. I didn't get it really, but I was like, this is really cool. Let me look into this. But then it was just the chaos of travel and moving, and that I just forgot. And then this time, Darwinex Zero was when my Forex funds went down. They went down, and I'm like, all right, well, it was fun, like this is great. I remember doing a video on it, like, well, this is not going to be the, only one. So brace yourselves. And then I was just looking at other things. I'm like, all right, what else is out there? Like someone else has to be doing something cool, something that works. And then I think I saw a video. So shout out to as much trash as influencers get. Also shout out to them too, because they do put certain good things in front of you. And just know who to follow. That's always the key thing, right? Know who to follow. Follow people with right intentions that want you to win and are not too financially incentivized to put you onto something. But yeah, so someone brought it up. Someone was like, yeah, like I forgot who it was, man. I wish I could.
I know exactly who it was because you're on.
I think it was Paladin. I think it might have been Paladin, the young kid from New York or something like that.
I think it might have been Paladin that got your attention, but I'm sure you're on Albert's leaderboard, Albert Burgess, because he's a close friend of mine. Because it's a funny story, and this is why I was so surprised that your username was the Disciplined Trader, because we were looking at his leaderboard. He's a very extremely good friend of mine, and we was looking at his leaderboard, and he said to me, he was like, "Man, this guy." This Disciplined Trader, every month he's at #1 spot on my leaderboard. He's like, the dude's absolutely killing it, because obviously when you come through a certain partner for a Darwinex Zero, you join their leaderboard, and I tell you what, you're the top every single month. You're #1, and definitely so for ages we were like, who is this guy? And then when we had our call a couple of weeks ago, and you said you was the Disciplined Trader, I was like, okay, I've seen this guy.
Oh, that's cool.
I know this dude. So yeah, I think that's it was around about the time that Albert did a video on Darwinex Zero as well, because it was around. I think it was on the week that MFF went down.
Yeah, it was quick. It was like for sure. It must have been him then.
Yeah. But I mean, dude, like I've got to take my hat off to you, because like I say, I've seen you on Albert's leaderboard. You will roll on nicely to the fact that you actually ended the month in #1 position, which obviously you just touched upon, which is just a huge feat. I mean, I don't know how many traders were in DarwinIA at the time, but I think we're floating roughly around 6,000. So to be
it was over 5.
Yeah. Probably like 4,000 or 5,000 at the time. But to be #1 out of all them is just, honestly, mate, that's a huge achievement. So congratulations to you. But talk to me about that. Like, when that month closed and you see that #1, I know it's not your goal to kind of compete to get to the top, but when you see that #1, how does that make you feel after all the years, after all the trials and tribulations to get there? How did that feel?
That was, that was interesting, because I remember you can't really quantify, like, okay, where am I in the trading space? Like, how good am I at this thing? And, I feel like every great trader, they know, like, yo, I'm good at this. Like, as humble as everybody wants to be, like you it's what you do. Like, you literally, like, this helps you survive and thrive. So like you have to have confidence behind your actions. But I would say that it was definitely really cool to see kind of a metric behind it, not just payouts, because you could get a massive payout, and I've had some nice payouts, but okay, well, what was the risk? Did you full send 4% one day and you hit it? All of a sudden you're up, how, like, a couple $100,000 or whatever, or like, what does it look like? But kind of having everyone on the same playing field, and then winning, I was like, oh, this is cool, because this is a great way for you to measure your levels. 1 month is fine. That's cool. Like, because for me, the thing was this: cool, I won once. Cool, I'm grateful. Can I do it again? Because then it's like, okay, well, now it's all about, because I don't care, bro. I do not care if you've done something great once. I don't care if I've done anything great once. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It's, can I be consistent with something great? Because I work with a lot of people, like thousands and thousands of people. And every day someone will bring up to my attention something. oh, like this is making people a lot of money, or this is some crazy thing or whatever. It's like, okay, but for how long? What's the duration? And so for me, it was like, cool, like this is awesome. And I'm grateful. And it's a great way to look at it. And I'm like, not really surprised, but I'm also not, I don't think this even, like, I wanted to see what I do after this happens. And everyone else also wants to see that too. You know, it's like, okay, cool, but like, can they keep doing it? And so February, I think I finished like 9th or something. And I was salty, bro. I was salty. I would be lying if I said I wasn't. Because I had it for like 3 weeks, and then at the last week, you know, it's how it goes, man. Like you have no way of possibly knowing when it's a random distribution. That's how the outcomes come. And so like, and because like I do live streams and stuff, so I was like, and I was just on some insane streak, and I'm just like, guys, like everyone calm down, you know, myself included. This will end, and we're gonna go through a losing streak at some point, right? Just because that's just trading. And so I was like almost waiting for it to happen. And I kept going, and things were just going at a very, very, like, I don't know about you, but I kind of know what my win rate is, my risk reward ratios are. Like you kind of have a general idea of where you're going to lie. And I was, bro, I mean, I was hitting like 65% win rate on like 4RR. I was on some just dumb, like nasty 6 weeks or so, like maybe 2 months. And I was like, all right, I know this. I've seen this. I've lived this many times throughout many years. And there's the cool off period too. And it's just how it goes. And so that's why I'd rather even talk about March. Because this is where the losing happens. Well, end of February and then most of March. And this is where you have the losing streaks or the trades take profit by a little bit and then come all the way back to break even. And then this was like, I have 2 trades that missed my entry by a point or a pip or less, and they hit 6R, 10R. And like everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And I'm like, this is trading. This is the truth. This is how it happens. Like the analysis, the chart happened and it looked perfect. You got a sniper entry on the chart, but your platform does not lie. And when you go and you look at your account and the spread didn't open your trade, and you're like, you mother, like that's how it goes. That's the truth. And so, but that's what builds the trader. Just like your 12-month period of drawdown, that's what 100% builds the trader, because you have to learn, can I continue to do the things that I was doing, but when I'm losing? Because everyone can trade their plan when they're winning. If you win enough, you'll actually start to deviate from it because you get too confident. But then when you lose enough, where does the blame go? Right? Do you blame the markets? Do you blame your system? Somehow it doesn't work anymore, even though you just were killing it last month with the same thing, but now this month it has betrayed you. So at least in my approach, same approach I've been doing since late 2018. I mean, I'm like, all right, I just gotta suffer this right now. So March was just one of those months. And it happened to me last year too. Same thing. March was the only month I had a drawdown last year, which is, I'm grateful, dude. Like, I'm not really complaining, but that's how it went. And I knew, and I kind of loved it. And it's twisted, bro. I don't know if that says something about me, but
I know exactly what you mean. It's like a reality check where the life's kind of saying you're good, but stay focused, stay on the ball, because this does happen. Now, I do feel like I need to ask, because I looked at your DarwinIA rankings, and you still ranked like 300 for March, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't have like when we're talking about this, and we're talking about you, because what the way you're coming across is that you fell off and everything blew up. But realistically, it was just
my standards, I guess,
your performance was up here, and then went, a bit of a slower month because you still, which is again a huge feat. You got 6 allocations in a row with us, right? So you ranked on the DarwinIA leaderboard and got 6 allocations in a row. March being one of those, which is phenomenal.
You also just kind of gave me a little like zoom out a little bit, because I was just used to placing in the top like 50, top 100, like. So that's the thing too, like it's all about your standards at the end of the day as well. And so I challenge everyone here to challenge your standards. Not in what you get, because it's going to be different. Everyone's on a different timeline, but on how you execute what you should be doing. And so that's why, I mean, I was still flawless in March, outside of a risk calibration that I had to switch up a little bit, where I took a fat loss. I was actually, this is the most heated I've been in a few years. I had a Euro GBP buy that I was in profit, and then it gapped on the open. It gapped on me because I hadn't held a cross pair like that on Darwinex. I hadn't held that yet, so that was my own fault, to be honest. And I was in profit, but then it gapped all the way down, and it was a tight stop, but it got me under my break even, under my stop, and like 10 pips under, maybe 15.
Yeah.
It was just a gnarly gap down. And bro, I mean, I'm almost 9 years in, like right around there. So like, I know these things happen. And so I was like, but the worst part is my entry was so tight that a jump like that, which really isn't a big deal, I ended up going like net -4 R or more. So it kind of threw off my month, and it was the last day of the month. So that's what threw off my month going into negative. And I was like, damn.
Which is something that, just kind of diverging slightly, again, is, questions that I see floated either on Twitter, not specifically directed to Darwinex, but
it happens everywhere.
It's an interesting concept that the industry now is that it's so accessible. Anybody can open a broker account, anybody can open a prop firm account and start trading. And then when something like that happens, it's like, oh, they're a scam. My stop loss was here, and I got filled 10 points lower or 10 pips lower. You being a trader who's been doing this for many, many years, looks at that and goes, I know the market can do that. Thank God it didn't gap any lower. That was my fault. I held that position. We all know, like, it's not the broker's fault even. It's the fact that anything can happen over the weekend. Like we've seen it. We know markets can gap crazy amounts. And even if they don't gap crazy amounts, like you say, if you go in with a tight entry and tight stop, if you've got a 3-4 pip stop and it gaps, 12 pips, you're looking at a 4-5 R lost there just on the gap,
100%.
And that's kind of the risk you take trading or more illiquid pairs and holding them over weekends, right?
For sure. I mean, they're both, like London session pairs and Asian session opens, and there's going to be spread and there's going to be a gap. Like at this point, it was like, I was not even upset. I was like, man, I know that this happens, and cool. I'm glad it happened now, because like I'll be going into gold, I think, here in a couple of weeks. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'm grateful that it happened right now, because when working with in a different level, when you're on gold, it matters a lot more. Every extra edge you can have matters. And so I'm cool, man. Like that helped me, and it humbled me a little bit. So I was like, all right, cool, that's fine. And then now climbing out of that again, and figuring it out. Because I think that's how I started April. My bad. That was the first day of April. So that put me straight into drawdown for April, and I was like, son of it. But now the thing is cool, because now I hit like 4 trades in a row again. And I'm like, oh, we're just coming right back.
I just pulled up your record now. I was just looking at it whilst I was typing it in wrong. I was putting SCLF instead of SLCF. But yeah, I mean, dude, honestly, your equity curve, I can see where you're so hard on yourself, and I can see actually that one trade. But what I always think, like, I don't know if you remember this day in 2015. I mean, I wasn't personally in the markets at that point. I think I was just at uni. But when it comes to something like that, and the fact you've taken a 4% loss or a 4R loss, do you remember Euro Swissy in 2015, January 2015? Have you ever looked at the chart?
Yeah.
When the the S&B, they abandoned the floor on Euro Swiss and it dropped. I think it was in like 5-minute candle, it dropped like 2,000 pips. Now you imagine whenever I make a mistake like that or do something and I'm like, ah, damn, I shouldn't have done that. I think back to that one Euro Swissy chart and I'm like, but I'm thankful it wasn't that. Do you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, I mean, same thing with Brexit. Like I've seen that happen. Yeah, bro, like you got to be ready for the unexpected in these conditions for sure. Yeah, man, that's why like this. I love that the way you guys have this all out. I think it gets people ready. Like I think it's a really good way to get people ready for like just the reality of it. But also like even learning the ecosystem for Darwinex Zero, like the drawdown portion of it. So for example, like on my account right now, I think I went down to like -8% or almost 9% drawdown or something like that. And I was like, how did like
896, yeah.
So I'm like, how? Because I was confused, like, how did this even happen? Like I haven't gone over drawdown like 2% in a day ever. And then it's like it takes your all-time high. And then it's the drawdown from that.
Yeah, peak to trough, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
It's like, all right. It's kind of more to measure trader volatility as opposed to if you just stuck like capital in as an investment on day one, how low would it have gone? Because, you know, with any investment, there's always a risk no matter where you get in. So for example, if you've just produced 500% over the past 5 years, let's say, an investor who invests then, even though you've got that 5-year data, that investor still might go through an 8.96% drawdown because that's kind of your volatility where we go, Mike has historically lost 9% of his account before bouncing back.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I see it. It's more of, and this is why I don't like, if somebody has a 10% or 20% or 30% drawdown, I don't necessarily see it as, the higher the better. I just go, that trade is a little bit more volatile and you've got to be prepared for that. And usually with the higher volatility when it comes to the drawdown, usually there's higher returns.
Yeah.
Mainly because
y'all ever see my account and drawdown? That's a good time. Just say it's a good time. Y'all know we're about to bounce back. 30% is pretty heavy. That's pretty gnarly.
30% is heavy, but I think that's probably standard. Like it's not too out of scope. I mean, what you have to consider with Darwinex or Darwinex Zero,
how it happens is what matters.
And so I mean, if it's one trade, obviously that's when you go, oh, that's a little bit more concerning than if it's within a 10-year window and they've had a slight dip in performance. But I mean, to get 30% on Darwinex after being risk adjusted, it probably wouldn't happen because the risk would be toned down through the risk engine and therefore it likely wouldn't get to -30%. But that's kind of by the by. I mean, I personally, on a manual trading system, I couldn't go down 30%. I would not be able to handle it. I'm very like risk averse as a trader. I like you say, I wouldn't lose more than, I mean, I risked 1%, but I might go on a 5-6 trend and you're still only down 6%, you know. That's where I feel comfortable. But honestly, there's guys, there's a trader on Darwinex. I can't remember it. I can't remember the ticker, but you can on Darwinex, you can actually see their signal account. So you can look at their underlying trading account. Whereas on D0, you can only see your own. And this trader risks pretty much 100% margin every position. So over the course of the past few years, they made about 3,000% returns, but their max drawdown is 90%. Now, when that goes through the risk engine, the trader's equity curve is consistently just going up, and it's one of the best Darwins I've ever seen. But when you look at their record, dude's risking 100% every trade, going 90% in drawdown and then bringing it back, and so it's kind of funny how, like what you were saying earlier, the way Darwinex presents and levels the playing field amongst any trader, no matter the system, style, strategy, edge, is just a kind of fantastic representation to the new traders coming into the industry who understand, okay, that's what I need to aspire to be like, not just going wild on prop accounts and trying to flip a payout, But talk to me a little bit about your vision and your goals moving forward in relation to Darwinex Zero. For anybody who doesn't quite know at this point, to progress from DarwinIA Silver to DarwinIA Gold, you need to have a minimum track record of 8 months. You've got to have made 20% on your Darwin, so that's after the risk-adjusted returns. And then your return to drawdown ratio needs to be over 2.5%. So that basically means if you have a 15% drawdown but a 20% return, your return to drawdown isn't going to have hit 2.5. So for every percent in drawdown, you have to hit 2.5% in return. Now, you've ticked all the boxes apart from the minimum track record of 8 months. However, this is your 8th month. So unless you go under the 20% return,
I gotta really do some undisciplined things here.
Yeah, and you're the disciplined trader, so we don't expect that.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as you stick it out for the next, we've probably got 10 trading days left in the month, maybe maybe a couple more. You'll be progressing to DarwinIA Gold next month. But anyway, back to the question, because I kind of took over a little bit there. You're right on the brink of that. So what's the kind of next steps with Darwinex Zero, but then you as a trader as well? Like, where's your long-term vision with this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple different plans here. Like I manage my own capital. I think that's like the number one thing you can do is just keep investing back into yourself. Like any money that I'll make, through here, I'll just go back into my live account anyways. I like my freedom, but I don't really care too much for having things. Like it's just not really a priority for me. I like some nice things, but like I'd rather hit, 8 figures, 9 figures, then get other things than look like I'd rather be wealthy than just look rich.
Of course, yeah.
So because
wealth doesn't always have to be displayed, right? It can be stuff that, like you were saying, you love traveling.
Or my vinyl, like I love having like sick albums. Like that's just cool. There's little things that make me happy.
Arctic Monkeys, the Gorillas.
I got some Tame Impala. I got the rap over here, and then all the other ones somewhere else. But oh yeah, Arctic Monkeys. That's your people, bro.
Yeah.
You know what's actually embarrassing though? Like that's not my favorite album. I swear. I'm better than that, guys. I promise. It's just aesthetically nice aesthetically. Some of you will get that. But yeah, for going forward, it's kind of like different game plans. I want to just grow this out as massively as possible. What's it? Who's got that 33 mil or 32 mil? What's his name?
Atu.
Yeah, so he's been unchallenged for a long time. So like I got to give him a little competition. And
love that.
I mean, like come on, somebody, let's go get him. So yeah, obviously scale here. I think it's important. I love the risk engine factor of it. That really gives me, because I've never been someone to do that to because the amount of people like, yo, just trade my money. It's like, I'm good on that. But I think the risk engine that this company has is so cool. And that gives me a lot more confidence to myself be protected. That makes the index, SLCF, and then the investor number one over anything. That they're good, and they understand kind of what the process really looks like. So yeah, scale here. By the end of the year, I want to cross on this platform. I want to cross at least $1 million on here between just like whatever I'm managing, if not 2. But in terms as a trader, like at this point now, I want to just keep serving people that are not where I'm at yet. and then also just get around people that are way beyond where I'm at and having conversations with like experienced traders like yourself. Like I love having this. Like I've been able to talk to some of the guys now on what's their name? Chat with Traders. I think that's their profile.
Chat with Traders. Yeah.
Like
Pat and is it Steve?
Steve, like those guys are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick is insane and I love him. He's just crazy and his way is so different than mine. And so just kind of hearing different approaches because we've studied, you know, the Jesse Livermores, the Richard Wyckoffs, the those types of traders, like the whole bunch of Japanese traders, that BNF and all these guys that went and did amazing 9-figure billion level trading. But you don't really get that right now. Like who do you talk to right now that's managing actively 100 million and is trading indices, is trading currencies? Like, can you have that conversation? Who's trading, you know? Which
is ironic, right? The fact that globalization has made the world more connected than ever, but there's still that lack of ability to connect with those people. Probably because with the rise of globalization and social media, how accessible it is, a lot of these people tend to retract instead of
and I understand
go and put everything. Exactly. Yeah. If I'm for example, if I'm managing 100 million and I've got a system that works, there's no way I'm going on Twitter and saying I'm looking for longs here. Because you think I'm getting $100 million worth of orders filled? No chance.
For sure. And I don't even know if it would be a technical thing, but you don't get there just by how you trade. Like I'm not where I'm at because of how I get into the market or what I need to get out of the market. There's other intangibles, you know, it's how you perceive yourself. It's, you know, how you get to a certain point of creating habits and disciplines, the way you reprogram, you know, like your belief systems about anything, money, what's possible, whatever. And so like one of my favorite people to learn from in the world is Alex Hormozy, and I've been following him for like 3-4 years. And he was kind of like that gap that was filled, because I felt like there's a lot of people that can teach you how to make 6 figures, a lot of people that can teach you to make 7 figures, but who knows how to get you to 8, 9, and also not hate yourself throughout the process, right? And be able to reach a level of kind of peace as you're scaling, and which requires a lot of sacrifice to put a lot of work into one thing.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's like kind of, I want to be learning from someone that helps me get to 8 to 9 just through conversation, not even, or whatever it takes, I guess, but also be that person for people. And have a space like this, like what you're doing, bro, like is good, especially through this track record process, because now you get to create a platform for people to listen to, people that have longevity too, not just, you know, a good month, a good payout, but like they can survive the ups and the downs. Because I think this conversation will be better in a couple months when it's like, oh, like, even though for me it literally was a little bit of drawdown, and I guess I might have made it sound worse than it did. Like the way you said it,
made it sound worse than it was.
But for me, I was just like, I don't know why, but it just felt, if it always feels worse than it really is.
Of course, yeah. Especially when you're living it, right? And do you know what's funny as well? Is usually the lowest points come from right after the highs. Like you'll be on top of the world, and this is what I found with, in fact, it's funny, I found it before and after that year drawdown. So before I went into drawdown because of a load of things that happened in my personal life that we won't get into, but before that I was riding a high. I was taking weekly or bi-weekly payouts from my funded accounts. I was living the life. All of a sudden that highest high went to the lowest low. And then when I come out of the drawdown, again, I went back to, I think I was taking FTMO, they only allowed payouts every 2 weeks. And I think from November, no, it wasn't, it was August, September was when I come out, and I got the account back to break even, took like $100 payout. And then I had a payout every 2 weeks up until the end of February this month.
So good.
And it was kind of like a roller coaster that went high to low to back to the high. And it's kind of like you have to be you have to be mentally prepared for that. And I can tell that you are, but I think you were being extremely hard on yourself, saying, you know, I had a really tough month. And then I look at your stats and I'm like, the dude still finished 300 out of 6,000 people, you know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it definitely, I mean, I managed it well. It's just, yeah, I don't know, a certain standard, but I actually made a video I posted on YouTube. I don't post as much as I really want to. That's actually a big goal of mine. I want to put more content out there, just like
you're definitely
unfiltered,
somebody who should be doing that.
Yeah, maybe I'll talk to you about how to just like mind map a bit more videos that will be good for people. But I did one about kind of like, I think there's not enough communication about when you do reach a certain level of success for you, and then you lose it. Because man, I couldn't tell you the amount of people in the last 2 months. Like, bro, I've had intense conversation with people that were ready to just like be done with it, because they got to taste it, they got to see it. You know, people saw them differently, they saw themselves differently, but then they lost it all for whatever reasons, you know. Because at the end of the day, you can taste success for short-term good things that you've done, but if you don't keep it if you're not it most of the time. And so like the first 100K, a lot of times you don't get to keep that. First time you see 6-figure portfolio or something like that, most of the time you don't get to keep that. You give a lot of that back, because you got to learn how to become that person.
You're talking about my life here, dude.
Same thing about the next level. Even I say quarter mil, same thing. And then just as that scales up and down, because you're unexperienced at certain places. But that
thing, getting wealth, but keeping wealth is a completely different thing.
Different games. There's wealth creation and there's wealth preservation, and I'd say wealth is, you know, I don't know, net worth over 5 or 10 or something. I say that would be more wealth, very like just starting off with inflation and everything that we're dealing with now, right? Like it's not the same anymore. But man, I've just had so many conversations the last couple months, and especially with people that had a lot of crypto and then they lost it all, and then now they're kind of climbing their way back. And so there's a video on my YouTube that was just raw. It was 20 minutes after someone called me that they were like, hey, I need help. I like tried to end it a couple of days ago. I can't, like, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. And I kept having those conversations recently, and I was like, whoa, okay, there's something going on. And so if anyone that's here that's just been going through failures as an entrepreneur, as a trader, in whatever sense, yeah, like it's not, this is actual trading. This is how it is. Like, this is that moment. Like, you had your moment like that. But this is where you find out if you're going to make it. This is when you're in drawdown, when you don't perceive yourself as a success anymore and things like that. It's like you have to shift it. You have to shift how you perceive yourself as a trader. If I lose a trade today, that doesn't mean I'm a bad trader. If you lose a trader, if you have a bad week, a month, it doesn't matter. It's how you, it's over time, where do you go? And so, you know, one of the higher faculties that we have in this world that we are as blessed as human beings is perception. And so I just challenge you to change your perception on your journey or where you think you're supposed to be. Because I don't know about you, Kieran, but anyone that I know that's been trading at least for a year, they're not really the same anymore. Like you change, like the way you look at the world, yourself, opportunity, everything. Like it's like a personal development journey that may or may not pay you, depending on where you're at, right? Usually it won't for a while. So it's like, instead of paying, you know, Tony Robbins, you're just paying the market. And they're not really giving you clear signs in what you're supposed to be learning, but you got to go and figure it out. But yeah, I'd say, like, guys, it's normal. It's normal to just sit in this process. And I would say most traders are in an experimentation phase, not in a profitability phase. Like, you're not supposed to be making money for a majority of people. Like, you're still figuring out all of the different parts of your system and allow yourself to. Because like I don't know about you, bro, but I struggled with that because I thought I was supposed to be making right off the rip. I thought I was supposed to be making money. And so that got in the way of learning all the things I was doing wrong and just like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's fine to lose. It's fine to, oh, I got to use my stop loss differently or whatever. But yeah, I had that on my heart, bro, that I needed to just kind of put that out there because I just seen it so much.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think we've got time for like one more question, and that question was going to be what advice would you, it's quite a generic question, but kind of what advice would you give to traders who are just starting out on the journey? And I think what you've just said, I mean, to a degree, what you've just said is kind of actually not for new traders, because that's more for people who, like you say, if they've had the carrot dangled in front of them for so long, they've tasted, they've bit the carrot, and then the carrot's been pulled. And that's sometimes harder to deal with than being a new trader and really struggling to get used to or get to grips with stuff. In fact, a friend of a friend who I know this week actually threw in the towel with trading after like 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer, and said, that's it, I'm done. Like, no. And for me, I don't even know this person, but I was kind of a little bit heartbroken for them because I was thinking, you put so much time and energy into this and you've just thrown in the towel. And I completely understand why. And I do think everybody has to have that limit where you go, this isn't for me. It's affecting my relationships. It's affecting my life, my mental health. There's certain things that I can't cope with. And I completely get it. But part of me was just like, I just wish that person hadn't bit the carrot before so that they were still as hungry as they were. But with that in mind, I'm going to spin the question slightly different, although it's the same thing. And what's the one piece of advice or the one thing that you would say to somebody who started trading tomorrow to focus on for the first 6 months of their journey?
One would be reevaluate your expectations. So if you're literally starting right now or tomorrow, talk to someone who's been doing this 10 years and have them give you your expectations instead.
I love that.
Yeah. Whatever you think is going to happen is not. And so that's number one thing. That way you're actually able to learn and you're not just suffering because you feel like you should be somewhere else. Two, most people are in some sort of social trading community, which is cool because you will accelerate like that because you get to get feedback faster. You might have a mentor. You might have someone that's really hands-on, which is awesome. But what I will say is this, make sure that they're helping you become the best trader that you can be and not to become a version of that.
Yes.
Because and this is probably the number one biggest flaw of mentorship is, well, there's two big ones. One, people just don't have results and they're just teaching. But two, they're teaching you how to trade like them, which could work. But if you're not like them, like your patience levels, your risk tolerance is not like them, then it's going to be hard to reach your true potential because you're becoming like them, not like who you're supposed to be as a trader. So those are the two things I'd say keep in mind. And three.
That's fantastic because I've never heard anybody ever say that.
Perfect. That works really well. And then the last thing would be, you are a trader, but this is a business. So you want to build your portfolio. Like you want to build your net worth as a trader. You're not just going there to get cash flow. You want to build your net worth as a trader. So right now, if I'm starting to trade all over again, I'm not putting money into my trading account. I'm trading demo and practicing, but I am putting money into something. I'm building my savings. I'm building a portfolio that way your net worth is evolving as your skills are. And eventually you get to the time where both of those things can match and then you can do them together. But one of the things that I didn't do well, especially my first couple years, but then with my students early on, was I didn't stress enough. Like you want to build your net worth. It's not just like get accounts and get funded or build your live accounts or build a track record. Actually, yeah, build a track record. But yeah, you want to just build your net worth alongside it, and you don't have to quit your jobs and your income streams to do this. I have a video online too on my YouTube about when is it the right time to actually become like a trader where a majority of your income is based on this. What does that look like? You should know your expenses and all those things like that. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have another conversation here, bro. Like I like chatting with you. You guided the
100%.
conversation really well.
We'll have to do this in the Discord as well. We can just hop on, jump on the stage, and we can have like more
Yeah.
chats and stuff. Because I mean, kind of to wrap this up, I think people will find true value like in what you're saying, not only because anybody can say the right thing, and I'm sure you'll agree. Anybody can say, you know, this wall is white. You can see it with your eyes. You understand. I could tell you, and you would agree with me. But unless you've got the concrete evidence, which is like your track record, where you go, I can say these things because here's my proof. People find much more value in that than just going. I mean, maybe people don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's so much fluff. If you scroll through Instagram, let's say you typed trading into Instagram and you flick through the reels, I'm sure I'd probably go brain dead before I learned something. Whereas if you popped up and you said something and I was like, oh, this guy was #1 in the leaderboard of 6,000 people and has got the credentials of somebody that I aspire to be, there's so much power in that. And I think, like I say, I mean, we've probably been going on for an hour and a half, and I don't think that's long enough when you're with a kind of person like that. Do you know what I mean? Like you could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Especially because, bro, it's rare. Like it's rare to be like we've both been in since like 2015-ish. So I think maybe you a little bit longer.
No, I'm shorter than that.
Okay.
A couple years. It was like I first started crypto in 2016, 2017. I think I bought my first crypto in 2016, and then I found FX a couple of years later through Instagram, ironically.
Yeah, and shout out to your dad, bro. Put you on.
Shout out to my dad. Yeah,
yeah.
He'll be watching this.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Like, I'm grateful that my dad was coachable enough to do this with me after like a few years after I started. Yeah, whatever year, however old you are, like there's no excuses. Man, what did you just say? Oh, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain level of emotional impact that does make a difference when you are listening to the same people, because like that is how an impact works. Like there needs to be stored energy from it. And especially if you're bin trading, it requires a bit more for you to really listen to be like, oh, wait, hold on. Okay, that's that. I maybe have heard of that, but the source is different. Now it hits. Okay, if this guy or this girl, they've been doing this way longer and they're saying the same things, it's like I'm clearly not seeing it. Because that would happen to me. I'd hear the same basic advice, and then all of a sudden, this one person said it, and then I'm like, damn it. I guess I do have to actually listen to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's similar to like everybody says psychology is important. Everybody can say it, and it kind of just becomes words that mean very little. But then when you sit down, let's say you was my mentor and I saw your credentials, and again, if it was everything I aspired to be and you said psychology is important because of X, Y, and Z, all of a sudden those words have a new meaning, because I go, actually, this is now coming from somebody who's in the position that I want to be in. It's not just some random person who's spouting the same nonsense again and again and again. It's actually a person who I want to be, if that makes sense. And so I completely agree with that. I think when it comes from a different source, not necessarily a different source, when it comes from an accredited source, the words actually have new meaning. Because again, anybody can read an encyclopedia and tell you facts about anything, but only the people who've truly experienced that whatever field it is. For our example, trading, you can't tell me about emotional intelligence and psychology in trading if you've never traded or traded at size. If you've traded £1,000 account, I know this is kind of like, this isn't for everybody, because to some people £1,000 might be a huge amount of money, and I'm not disregarding that. But if you're from a middle-class background and you've only ever traded £1,000 account, you're not going to be able to teach me about trading at size, because you haven't done it, And so I think that's it's a really great point to kind of end this this interview on.
I'll leave you with one last short statement. Is, you ever heard of the phrase quantum leaps? like taking a quantum leap.
No.
Taking a quantum leap is like it's beyond something exponential. It's like it's such a massive jump that you can't understand it even in this dimension. Like it doesn't really make sense to us. So let's just say taking a big leap in the trading journey. In this trading journey, you don't skip levels. You have to master them. So know that you cannot skip any one of the levels that you have to go through here to make a massive. So to go and make massive amounts of money here, you can't skip them. You will come right back down to where you're supposed to be every single time. I've tried. Doesn't work. You have to master them. And that's all. That's all I got to say.
Which goes back to what we said at the beginning. There's no one all-powerful indicator that's going to give you the secret sauce to the market, right? You've got to master each and every step, and you know, eventually people will be in the position of you. And eventually, what's great is you was talking about Atu. You'll be in the position of Atu, and you know the growth is just exponential.
Yeah. Here's the problem with Atu, man, is I'm gonna be going for him, you're going for him, and then he's gonna be like, well, I'm at 50. All right, good luck. But we're coming for you, bro, in the friendliest way possible.
Atu, take notes. Well, bro, I want to say a massive thank you for coming on today. Like, I don't think you understand just how impactful this will be for everybody, even for me. Just being able to get some insights from you and understand you as a person, because let's face it, you're a really nice guy. You're super casual. You're not some dude sat in JP Morgan with a suit, you know, hunting everybody's stops. You're
a suit, man.
You're just like a regular guy, and you're so relatable, which I absolutely love. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for coming on and spending an hour and a half with me, just blabbering about trading and about your Darwin and stuff. So, dude, I appreciate it so much.
Let's keep doing it, man. Thanks for having me, bro. It's a pleasure and honor, and you know, we'll be back.
Everyone who tuned in, thank you for watching. I'm going to leave all of Mike's information below, links to his YouTube, which has got all his social media links. So if you do want to contact him or get in touch, head over there. Once again, Mike, thank you very much for joining us, dude.
My pleasure, man.